Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Oh, you're muted there, A1. Unmute yourself. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Nah, you good, because I'm on both. I'm on the other live
Okay, as long as
stream,
they can hear me.
trying to make sure
Yeah.
everybody got their email.
Let me know when everybody's in the
So everybody
when
good. All right, so now City Mellow, you good? Hold up. Let me see something. Hold on. Let me close that out. Let me mute this one up.
testing, testing. I don't know if I'm talking to the family or not. A1 will let me know. And so we can get
Nah, you
started.
good. You good. You good. You good.
So is everyone out
Boy, you
there?
good.
The family's out there? Oh, okay. All right. Okay, awesome there. Janine, welcome. Tony, yep, GR Niji. Okay, I guess everyone can hear me. So sorry about the technical difficulties, family. Um I had to go with plan B here and had some mic issues, but nothing's gonna stop us. We're on the battlefield here and we're confronted daily, hourly with obstacles put out there by the opponent. It's just part of warfare. So we're always going to overcome, and the people will not be denied the valuable information. Although they don't want this information to get to you. So as we see, the title of the presentation, family, is legendary Indians of Compton. Now let's discuss the title first before I
Real quick,
begin. I hope.
real quick. Can you hear me real quick? Hold up. I got one person
Yeah.
over here saying they didn't get it. Hey, Enoch 0407. Email me now, and I'm gonna send it to you now. You said you emailed me at 8:09. I don't see the email. I really don't. Email me now, and I'm gonna send it to you right now. Don't worry. I'm gonna make sure everybody get that link. I'm not just going. I'm not going. Hello, Drake Cobbs. I see Drake Cobbs email me around that time. Email me now. I'm trying to make sure everybody get that link, so nobody be like, they didn't get the link for the bill. So Enoch 0407. Email me now, bro. My email is still on the screen. chief@AOL.com. Email me and I will send it to you now. We still got people sending emails in, so email me now, brother. I'm gonna keep the screen up, but go ahead, Amani.
Okay. Okay. So as the title of our presentation, the legendary Indians of Compton, and oh my God, family, they were legendary. Many of us you may have ancestors up in that particular territory. Now, I hope everyone's hungry because this is going to be a 10-course meal. Okay, and the first few courses, just little, mouth size little pieces just to get you started. Okay, um, and we're going to start off. But basically, our purpose, family, is to because we go through stages in life, and like me personally, I was the king of the Pan Africans. Okay, back in the 80s, when there was no YouTube, no social media. You had to get out there, and how they used to do it, they used to promote their lectures. Dr. Ben and Ajwa Kwesi and Van Sertimo would promote their lectures on the radio, and usually it'll be at a college, university, and we'd go, we'd in the bookstores in the area, local bookstores would sell the tickets, and we'd go there. Okay, so when it comes to, I was there as well. So if I can grow and be blessed by my ancestors to break out of that, but that was necessary because what that did, it grounded me in research. Because you had to get to libraries, and when I was a student at UCLA, we UCLA has what's called um, a special collections section of but you could never check the book out, but you can go in there and read documents. I had access to that, and I was very useful to many of those talking there, because but we would go through those stages. And um but when you're blessed by your ancestors, because we've actually been sinning. Sin, when you're in sin, means you're dishonoring your ancestors. You don't know who you are, and you're living someone else's social construct, such as African American, Black, etc. Right? So that's why we keep catching hell, because we're living in sin. So, but when you're out of sin and you're blessed, that's when your ancestors touch you, and then they will reveal the truth to you. And it's not what you were told, because many of our ancestors were landlords, and it's almost as if we've been living in this movie, and we're a character in someone else's script, and they created the characters, African American, Black, etc. Right? And we've, whether knowingly or unknowingly, agreed, acquiesced to play those roles, but that has nothing to do with reality. You see, so, but your ancestors, when you're blessed, they're going to pull you over into reality and bless you with information. That's why I'm here today. So I was blessed with this information. I'm going to share it with everyone here. And like the database of the Little Compton Indians database, I was blessed with this database. It's court records going back from the 1600s, 17 and 1800s, with all the names of the families. Okay, and their contracts, right? Very, very powerful information. But before I get into that's in the later, that's going to be your later course meal. That's like from the sixth course. It's a 10-course meal. So before the sixth course, I'm gonna break down the Compton Indians, and then we're gonna look into that first. But so once you're blessed, you're pulled out of the movie into reality, and then you have a purpose, you have a goal, and that is to claim your inheritance that your ancestors left you. That's our only purpose, family, right? And that's what I'm here for. So um, we're going to start out by, so one of the social constructs that we've been cursed with, because it's a curse, African American, right? So I want to give shout outs to brother Nigel Redrick. He actually got this information front for me there through his network. Give him appreciate that for him. So um, as we all know, Jesse Jackson, is one of the creators of that evil construct back in I think 1989, right? But we didn't know that there was a brother named Avis Smith. He's an engineer and currently a professor at CUNY University in New York, City University of New York there. And this brother actually has also his own technical patents that he put out there. So he's brilliant. But he although he didn't know the law and didn't really know how to frame a claim, but at least he actually filed a lawsuit against Jesse Jackson for that, and to use his terms, Smith called it evil word. Okay. And so I want to share that information with the family first. Pull up number one there, A1 on the screen there. Um, and this is part of the filings back in 1984, and the cover sheet. Let's start with the Avis Smith's cover sheet there, A1. Yeah, there it is there. The cover sheet there. Okay. So this is a civil cover sheet. So basically a civil cover sheet is when you initiate a law, a civil lawsuit, and you list the plaintiffs, defendants, etc. But the key is this is how you set up and lock in your claim. You see, your claim has to be solid and locked in order for your case to move forward without your case being dismissed, right? And so we can see here. Um, Let me blow it up here. Okay, so part two, basis of jurisdiction. Federal question is what he checked. Okay, we look at citizenship, part three. Now, of course, Mr. Smith was a citizen of New York, so he checked that correctly. But this is actually for diversity purposes, so which is not has nothing to do with federal question. Federal question is when you're dealing with something dealing with federal law, the Constitution, etc. Usually, when we have federal diversity is when citizens from different states sue each other. That gives you federal diversity. But he, for some reason, didn't really have that understanding of that. Now he was pro se when he filed this lawsuit. And if we look at cause of action here, diversity of citizenship, he puts here Civil Rights Act 1964, United States Code 1975, discrimination in public accommodations, Administrative Procedure Act. So these are the claims. Of course, these claims are totally off, which was the reason his lawsuit did not move forward. Okay, but that's not the point. The point is, at least he tried to do it, and he understood that he did not want that evil social construct placed upon him. And he wrote here, the problem of so-called Black and or African American leaders, um, renaming Black people against their will. This is what he wrote here in section 4 of this civil cover sheet. Okay. Um, and okay, yes. So now, if we go over to the next document, the actual order, the 1994 order of dismissal.
All right, hold up. I just want to make sure it was being shown. Everybody's seeing what I had up on the screen, right? Let me just make sure because I'm looking at it. So it's still up on the screen, Amani, right?
Yep, it's still there.
All right, so look, let them, I'm going to go down a little bit. If I didn't go down. See, it's
Yeah,
in the
yeah, right there. Yep, section 4. That's where he wrote in, the problem is with Mr. Smith, the one who sued Jesse Jackson. Now, this is a lawsuit against Jesse Jackson, okay? And he said these so-called Black leaders renaming us is the problem. So against our will, okay? So he had the right intent. He just didn't know how to do it. But give him credit for at least filing a lawsuit, because we many of us didn't know about this lawsuit. I came across it, and I was, my goal was to get maybe a copy of the complaint, but it didn't get that far. I actually contacted Professor Smith. I emailed him. He replied, and he actually wrote a book about it. But then I just found it. Then thanks to Brother Nigel Redrick with his network, he was able to get these documents for us, family. So, but yes, he was sued, and it was the right idea. And this is the kind of stuff that needs to be done
Look, you
against
can
people
see
like
it at the
Jesse
bottom.
Jackson.
You want to read that at the bottom where it say cause of action?
Yeah, I read that. I just read that, but I'll read it again. Hold on, not a problem. Yeah, yeah. So this is what he wrote here: cause of action. Um,
You guys can see where it say cause of action.
Yeah, so he was confused on the basic jurisdiction. First, he said diversity of citizenship, and Title 28, Section 1332, Civil Rights Act. Now, those Civil Rights Act and the United States Code's 1975 discrimination in public accommodations, those are federal issues, but he's confusing federal with diversity jurisdiction. But the powerful statement is below here where he says the problem of so-called Black or African American leaders renaming Black people against their will. That statement. um, because he did not want to be called that evil construct placed upon him, and he tried to do something about it. So and we're here, um, nearly what 94 is when he filed his lawsuit. So nearly 40 years ago, you know, talking about what he did. Again, like nonetheless said, you file a lawsuit, it's there for history forever. You know, that people can build off of, and expand upon, and maybe here someone may be motivated to actually do it right against people like Jesse Jackson and them. So now that when they come up with these evil constructs, you can do something about it. And if you see at the top where it says defendants, who's Reverend Jesse Jackson and a Ramona H. Edelin. Those are the defendants, right there at the top of the cover sheet. Okay, and of course, everyone here, will get copies of what's being shown for your records. And of course, going to the order, the second document, as to why it was dismissed.
All right, so
Memorandum in order.
this one. Hold on, let me mute my mic real quick, just in case if I need it.
Yep, there it is. Yep, that's it right there. So this is the memorandum in order, September 15, 1994, U.S. District Court, District of Columbia. Upon consideration of the motion to squash service of the complaint on defendant Edelin and plaintiff's opposition thereto, defendant Edelin's motion is hereby granted. Defendant Jesse Jackson has moved to dismiss the complaint herein, and plaintiff has opposed his motion. Defendant correctly points out that the plaintiff has not alleged any duty on the part of either defendant to plaintiff. Plaintiff has alleged no facts that would support a claim against either defendant under either the Civil Rights Act of 1964 or the Administrative Procedure Act. Nor has plaintiff alleged any other legal theory that would warrant recovery by plaintiff against either defendant. No legal duty appears to be owed to plaintiff by either defendant, nor has any legal duty been breached by either defendant. Accordingly, the complaint fails to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. Okay, now, before we leave this here, this is interesting here, family, right? So what did Jesse Jackson say? So Jesse Jackson said that he owed the plaintiff no duty. He owed him no duty. So no legal duty appears to be owed to plaintiff by either defendant. So again, that means that Jesse Jackson said, wait a minute, Mr. Smith, I don't know you from Adam. So there's no agreement, no explicit agreement between us. There's no implicit agreement between us. And of course it can't now of course you do have another way to be remedied for an injury if there's no contract. What is that? That's a tort. Okay. So now again, had he used that angle, because let's say the evil construct African American somehow injured him some way, then you want to use torts, because then you don't need a contract or an implied contract. Um, um, yeah. So, but again, that was the reason why his lawsuit did not move
Hey,
forward.
real quick,
Yes.
Amani, real quick. Did you
Yes.
read this part where it say him to relief the plaintiff complaint against the defendant is dismissed? It say in this country where freedom of speech is prized, generally use of the term African American by the defendant cannot be deemed to violate any legal cannot
Oh yeah.
cannot.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yes. So let me read that to the family. Yeah. Great. Thanks for pointing that out, A1. Awesome. Um, right. So it says here, in this country where freedom of speech is prized, general use of the term African American by defendants cannot be deemed to violate any legally cognizable right of plaintiff. Interesting. See, so Jesse Jackson has the freedom to spew that word into the ethers. Is whether or not you're going to accept it,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're going to acquiesce to it, and a failure to do so, then on these documents that you fill out for your jobs, where it has racial categories of African American, whether they throw it retroactively in history books, no one's they have the freedom to do that. Whether or not you're going to allow that to apply to you is up to you individually. When it comes to trying to sue him for an injury, right? So, but yeah, so we already know, and then of course we know that the term African American currently is trademarked by a Chinese individual who's in China. So I already did a presentation about that a few years ago, where I showed the trademark, the owner, and all of that information. Okay, so but yes, so I just wanted to kind of start off with that. But there was a lawsuit against Jesse Jackson for that evil construct.
Dang. Wow.
Yep.
It's
So
interesting.
because
Right.
right, all of this ties in. Why do they constantly keep changing? We're the only ones on the planet, family, with 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 multiple social constructs, right? Just us, from colored to Negro to black, and now this term here. But you know what? Basically, this is what it is. It's a redaction. We are redacted. So it's like there's a black marker over the true, something's hidden under the redaction. What is it? It's actually our geographical identity that connects us to a piece of land. That's what they don't want known. Okay, so they come up with these. Just think of it as a redaction. Your Nigerians aren't redacted because they're from Nigeria. They're connected to a geographical location, right? But you go from colored to Negro to now to black to African American, constantly changing. All right now, but this evil current one was created for a reason, and now everything is playing part where they're coming over. These illegals are coming over who are real Africans, and they could fit perfectly under that construct of African American, right? Because that's exactly who they are, right? And so we know that all this is all about land, to disconnect us from the land, and ultimately, when the heirs are no longer around, then they'll just take it and own it. Right now, they don't own it; they're controlling it, right? Because some of us are still around. So let's move on here. Um, and when it comes to Africans, as I mentioned, you know, they have no vital records. They have no custom of records. Okay. So let's go to number two, A1, and let the Africans tell you themselves. We're going to play a little video. The Africans tell you themselves that they have no records, and they're trying trying to create it now. So if someone who can't tell you the name of their grandparents or great grandparents, then they don't deserve to have a conversation with you, let alone talk about something 150, 200 years ago. You can show your records. So, yeah, go ahead and play that there for the family, A1.
In the headlines this week, automobile giants invest $3 billion into car manufacturing in South Africa. Africa solely has over 500 million citizens without birth certificates. Finally, in Kenya, the country is looking forward to raising $2.8 billion from Eurobonds in the coming months due to beleaguered economic crisis.
Just a test. Make sure everybody can hear it, right? Everybody can hear it? Did you hear it, Amani?
Yes, I heard it. Yes.
All right, okay. All right, let's get back. All right.
South Africa's government's ambitious plan to woo investors seem to see the light of day as automobile giants including Nissan and even Mercedes are announcing an investment of $3 billion by 2023. To many analysts, this is likely to succeed as plausible investments have already been achieved in sectors including pharmaceuticals and e-commerce in South Africa. Serge Kofi and Ronald Kato have the details.
Life has become too expensive. Red tape is killing the economy. But Congressman Tom Kaine is leading in Congress, championing bipartisan solutions to make life more affordable for New Jersey families.
$3 billion is the amount that automakers have promised to invest in South Africa over the next 5 years. The announcement by the Car Makers Association, which includes Nissan, Volkswagen, and Isuzu, was made at an investment conference in Johannesburg. The news could boost the automotive industry in South Africa, which had lost its status as a construction hub on the continent, to Morocco.
Yeah, move forward. Move forward. Play it now.
Yes, hello, thank you for your invitation.
We are just seeing a World Bank report indicating that Africa has the lowest coverage rate in terms of birth identification. How do you analyze the direct impact of this on the African economy?
Yes, we have a really interesting problem that concerns all African leaders, if not all Africans. Even if we are not the only ones in the world, we are talking about 1 billion. But if 500 million are in Africa, so it is considerable. Do you realize if someone really doesn't have an identity, or if we don't get to know our populations, how do you expect to really understand the preferences of the populations there and the problems they face? Because they are invisible beings. They are called invisible beings. This is a problem that has been around for quite some time, and even on our world in Africa. We do not have what is called property rights. If the state does not have a precise idea of the number of populations, the impact can only be negative on the African economy or in the economic development of African countries, because it is precisely this demand that is representative. However, if that is not taken into account, even for our safety, it is a real problem if we can't identify a number of problems. So this is a question that seems to me to be crucial for Africa, and which raises a little bit and relevance of the policies we pursue if we cannot cover, or if we have a very low coverage rate of the needs of our population. So I think it is an important problem, and one that must involve all African leaders to address this problem in the most visible way.
It's obvious having this data is imperative. So on what grounds are we seeing African governments make important policy and developmental decisions without the statistics?
Yes, that's the problem of African strategy. You have heard a bit everywhere in African countries, even at the level of the African Union. We have an agenda for 2063, but obviously an agenda for 2063 that could not take into account almost half of the African population, because 500 million is perhaps half or 40% of the African population. So you see that this is a serious problem. You know, in our countries in Africa, we often have this weakness, which consists in not really having a precise idea of our potentialities, whether it is our human resource or our human capital, or even our mining resources, our wealth. We generally do not have a precise.
Okay, cut it out right there. You can stop it there, everyone.
And with that, you can't.
Okay, family. So you heard it from the horse's mouth. They have no identity, no records, but yet They'll sell you and hustle you. They're hustling you by saying, "Oh, we're family. Come back home." How are they telling you to come back home when they don't even know who their grandparents were? So this should even make the hustle and the again, it's a Hollywood movie that we've accepted of characters created by script writers, and we took on those roles, and this is part of the adventure of that character in that movie. And part of that is, oh, you take a DNA test, oh, you're from there. Oh, you're from this tribe. But the tribes themselves can't go back to that time because they have no records. And what did he say? We have no property rights. Exactly what he said. They have no property rights. But we're heirs of landlords. We've been bamboozled, family, and we have to look ourselves in the mirror, honestly, and just say it that I'm dumb as a box of rocks. But from today, I'm going to take one step to break to no longer being dumb, one step at a time, a day at a time, to make a change. But if we don't admit, the first step is admitting we got the drug problem, that we're a junkie. You don't admit that, nothing will ever change. Nothing will ever change. You're being hustled. We've been hustled the entire time. But if you have piercing conversations with people, you can cut right through the crap real quick. You can just sit with ask any African from any country in Africa. Just start asking them about their paternal ancestors and maternal ancestors, the names, places, birth times. Boom, you're gonna discover, oh my God, they don't even know. Then you'll know that something's strange. Okay, wow, that's interesting. But because we never have those conversations, we're having conversations created by the scripts and what we're told, and this is why we're in this situation. So we have to, make these differentiate yourself from the bull crap, right? So I want to, I have this segment of our part of our glory, showing some of our glory and some of our accomplishments, because our accomplishments being used to this day by everyone around the planet, things that many of our ancestors created, which is in use, and many of it you may not know about it, but you use it. And we're going to quickly feature before we get into the main course. Little nitbit here is another one. Go to Charles Page's patent A1. There it is right there. Okay. We were told that the airplane, we have to thank the Wright brothers. Well, the Wright brothers weren't the first. So hidden behind the Wright brothers, way before they patented theirs, was Charles F. Page, family. We have to thank Charles F. Page for the airplanes we fly in today. But no one told you that, and they're not going to tell you. You have to be blessed. Your ancestors will bring it to you. So here's the actual patent. Charles F. Page, patented April 10th, 1906. Now, of course, it was filed it way before that, but this time was called an airship. Okay, and we see the design here on page figure 1. This is the design there, right? Very, very intricate here. Now, again, when you do a Google search on Charles F. Page, remember they cursed us, family. They cursed us with the African slave stuff. That's a curse. But so you have to, bob and weave through the crap, because we already, you know that a slave couldn't create a patent like this. They couldn't create designs like this. We already know that. So now you'll move forward, and you won't fall for the sorcery there. Okay, but this is his actual design here. Now, the story, what happened with Charles Page family, is that we all know about the St. Louis World's Fair. Okay, I believe that was 1903. Wasn't it 1903 A1 St. Louis World's Fair, the big one? Yeah, so I think that was it there. So his prototype.
I'm just muted up.
Yeah, the St. Louis
Amani,
World's
I'm just
Fair.
muted up. That was in
Yes.
1903.
Right, exactly. So 1903 family, Charles Page was going to present his revolutionary airship to the world. Okay, so he applied to present it, and it was accepted. And so his plan was, he actually sent his prototype first on a train, and then he was on the next train to catch up with it in Missouri. But what had happened was, when he showed up, they stole his prototype, family. Stole it. And, the brother, I guess at the time, didn't really want to fight. So he ended up going back home. And of course, he was a major landowner, 300 plus acres, and he was a farmer. He just lived his days off as farming. But this is the genius that we have to thank for the planes we fly in today. They stole this prototype, family. And yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, so this is part of our glory. But yes, we fell a great fall. The youngsters, with the pants sagging down, and I mean, it's just, so you take a picture of our people back in the early 1900s or 1800s. They're in suits, looking presentable, totally different people. We fell. We've been cut away from this. And so all of our technical inventions have been, these Johnny come latelys came, got their hands on it, sold it to everyone else in the world. But this is the person who we have to thank for airplanes, family, Charles Page. So don't remember him. And here's this technical patent here. We see all that, and this is right here on the United States Patent Trade Office website database. Anyone can print it out. It's been there the entire time, but of course they don't teach you about him in school. No. He's from Pineville, Louisiana. So, yeah. So you guys can get that for your library and tell your children it was not the Wright brothers, Charles Page. All right. So now I'm going to get to the Compton Indians, family, the main course. And this main course is going to be kind of sectioned off. It's not like one big plate. It's going to be sectioned off. So we're going to have to start to build it up so you can understand. Okay, this place Compton had some incredible Americans or Indians. But see, the image of an Indian family is not what we think it is. We think an Indian, we've been, programmed to think an Indian is these people with these dancing around and with those costumes on. And, then they tell us they were kind of primitive and, living in tune with nature, No. Totally wrong image. You see. So now we're gonna understand that by going through these Compton Indians. So let's first start. Where's Compton? Okay, we know about the Compton. See, now it was a twist with the logo with Eazy-E. there in LA. We know the famous Compton in Los Angeles County, right? I'm from Los Angeles, right? So, and but again, ancestors blessed me with this information. There's a Compton before LA Compton, and that particular Compton family is in a territory of the great nation that was called the Wampanoag. Okay, so those Compton Indians are Wampanoag Indians, and of course, under the Wampanoag, you have Narragansett, you have Pequot. Okay, but that area of Compton, which they didn't tell us about, that's the territory is where a lot of those legendary people came from. So that Compton we're talking about is up in the northeast Compton. And so the name Compton for some reason is connected with melanated people. Right? So that's very, very interesting. So let's pull up, let's start with Michael Johnson there. I believe that was, I sent you that one was number, hold on. That was number 4, 5, Liberty. Okay, go to 5B. Pull up 5B, A1. Real quick, before we get to this one, notes about Cape Verdeans. Go to 5B. I'm going to start with this one. Yep, that's it right there. Okay. I just want to give shout outs to Mail, actually. Mail did a build talking about Christmas addicts. And then right in that build, it was he had another name, Michael Johnson. Then I just took a deep dive on it. Okay. I took a real deep dive on this here. And so let's go over this here first, real quick, family. So we all know about what they call the Tea Party, the Boston Tea Party, right? Scroll down a little bit there, A1. I'm going to read from the article. Okay, right there. Stop right there. Okay. All right. Okay, now. So I'm going to read a little bit of this, family. But this here, Boston Tea Party and all this stuff, you know, right around what they call the Revolutionary War. After today, family, you're going to get a whole new picture because they imprinted images in their script, in their movie, of what they want you to think the people looked like. They want you to think who those people were. All right? So, says here, hold on, clear my throat here. On a snowy night in a Boston pub, sailors from a whaling ship gathered to swap sea stories over pints of beer. Let's stop right there. Whaling ships. Now, after this presentation, and when you move forward with your life, when you hear about whaling ships, whalers, mariners, the only thing you'll be thinking about are those Compton Indians, because they were the whalers, they were the mariners. Let me continue. Some of the men had recently returned from the Bahamas and planned to set sail soon for North Carolina. A British soldier dropped in the bar and inquired about part-time work. The seamen, worried about their own employment, cursed at the soldier and ran him out of the tavern. One of the sailors at the pub that night was Michael Johnson, a tall, muscular, middle-aged man who worked as a rope maker. No, he wasn't a rope maker. He was a mariner. He was out in the ships because he's a Wampanoag Indian, Compton Indian. And that was the duty of all males who were Wampanoag. They were all mariners, passed down from father to son. So let's continue here. Next day, Mr. Michael Johnson joined a crowd of protesters who were upset about thousands of British soldiers who occupied their city. Now, this is the sorcery. No one's occupying Wampanoag City. They were too powerful. Okay, so let me get down to the nitty gritty of this here. Okay, right here. Michael Johnson, alias Crispus Attucks. Okay, now we're not going to go through the sorcery about the slave stuff and all of that because we know better. So it says here, he was part of the Wampanoag tribe. He was born in Framingham, Massachusetts, 1723, March 5th. Okay, now they say he was the first American man to die in the War for Independence. All right, now we're not falling for the sorcery here about this, him being African and his mother being a Wampanoag. We know better. No damn Africans around at that time, so we're not falling for that. Okay, but the point is this: Crispus Attucks is Michael Johnson, who is a Wampanoag Indian. Now, let's get down to this part. So he was killed, and let me see here. So he was buried in Boston's old granary burying ground there, right? Which is an area for cemetery for Revolutionary War soldiers. Okay, but I wanted to start off with one Wampanoag individual that we all know about, Crispus Attucks, but we didn't know that he's Michael Johnson. Now, another thing about this, King George III, the king at that time, sent his royal coroner to examine his favorite soldier's body. His King George's favorite soldier was Michael Johnson. So we have to ask ourselves this question. If Michael Johnson, aka Crispus Attucks, was a Wampanoag Indian, why is he King George III's favorite soldier? Then, based upon those facts, we can safely infer, was King George III king of the Wampanoag? Was King George III a Wampanoag Indian king? And we only know him by his English name, King George III, but we don't know his Wampanoag name. Now we know Michael Johnson's Wampanoag name, Crispus Attucks. English equivalent, Michael Johnson. So King George III, royal coroner, examined the body, and they gave him an incredible funeral fitting for the soldier of his level there. Okay? So now, I wanted to just start with that one there. So now let's move to that other article you just pulled up before, the notes about Nantucket, about Cape Verdeans on Nantucket. That one right there. Okay. Now go to also the Spirit of the Turtle, number 5C. A1, pull that up. Spirit of the Turtle 5C. Okay, right there. So now I want to start with this one first. There's a book called Spirit of the Turtle Family. But now the back cover is the only thing we're concerned with. Okay, the back cover is what we're concerned with. Because this back cover mentions another famous, legendary Compton Indian who was a Wampanoag. Okay, so the back cover says here, the year's 1848. Okay, let me read this here. This is just a kind of like a trailer, a preview about what the book's about. It's the Ukchang boy adventures aboard a 19th century whaling ship. So when you think about whaling ships, you get only thing in your mind is a Wampanoag ship, because they were the whalers and they were the mariners. Okay, so the year's 1848. The sea beckons, a vast unexplored world of adventure and opportunity. But for 14-year-old Solomon Ward, a boy from Long Island's Paspatuk Reservation, the call of the sea stirs deeper ambitions. Inspired by the tales of Absalom Boston, the great Wampanoag whaler who captained his own vessel. Stop right there. That's all I need to read. So this book is about a young boy who's from the Puspatug Nation, who starting out in a career and aspiring to be one of the great legendary Compton Mariners, Absalom Boston family.
Oh, stay right there. Stay right there. I got a question.
Yes.
So Absalom Boston. So that would say that the name the city of Boston is named after Wampanoag Indians. Yeah. Money. Oh shit. Oh shit, he must have got kicked. I don't know what the hell just happened to him. Just bear with me. He should be right back, y'all. Mic check, mic check, mic check. Can y'all hear me? All right, there you go, right there. All right, there you go.
Yeah, I got cut out there. Sorry about that.
Don't worry about it. We good. Okay. I got you. What I was asking was, so that would mean that the word Boston itself come from the Wampanoag.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there, now you're thinking they want Boston, Wampanoag, but up in New England, King George. Now, who was one of one of the kings that we know before the Revolutionary War? You had the King Philip's War. So the King Philip's War, King Philip was a Wampanoag king. So we know his Wampanoag name, and he's called King Philip. Okay, so yes, Absalom Boston. But now when you Google up Absalom Boston, they'll say, "Oh yeah, he was the one of the first African Americans who was a captain of his own ship and an all African American crew, and he was a slave of it." I mean, the same bullshit. But the reason I wanted to point this back cover out, family, because they don't do that. They're not putting in the sorcery. They tell the truth. It says that this young boy, Solomon Ward, inspired by the tales of Absalom Boston, the great Wampanoag whaler who captained his own vessel. That's what I wanted to share with the family. So no one's confused. Absalom Boston was a Wampanoag Indian. Okay? And now, just get back to that other article. I was just up there, the notes on Cape Verdeans and that on Nantucket. Okay. Now, right here. Let me read this here, family, because this is going to highlight the influence of the Wampanoag Nation, those Compton Indians, their influence, their global influence. So let me read here. Between the 1790s and the 1850s, outward bound Nantucket warships stopped at the Cape Verde Islands to provision and recruit more crewmen. Some of these men returned to Nantucket and settled on the island. Many more Cape Verdeans joined New Bedford whale ships, sparking immigration to the Massachusetts coast. The Cape Verde Islands are subject to prolonged periods of drought, leading to famine. A deadly famine occurred in the 1830s, followed by an eruption of Fogo in the 1840s. These conditions led many Cape Verdean men to join the crews of whale ships for hardly more compensation than food. At the end of their voyages, the vessels returned to home port, bringing their diverse crews with them. Some Cape Verdean seamen who reached Nantucket on whale ships stayed, married Nantucket women, or Nantucket Bay, you're still talking Wampanoag women, and raised families. In 1811, a Cape de Verde Portuguese Negro known as Michael Douglas married Mary Boston, the widowed sister-in-law of Nantucket mariner Absalom Boston. Born around 1766, Douglas had resided on Nantucket since at least 1809. His name is spelled Michael Douglas on a headstone in Nantucket's historic colored cemetery. His surname may have originally been Deleuze. Okay, let's just break this down for a second, family. So, Cape Verde Islands went through famine, but now we know the people on Cape Verde speak Portuguese, which would mean that you would think that, wait a minute, they'll be under the jurisdiction of a place called Portugal, which means if they're experiencing famine, the responsibility to take care of them would come from the place called Portugal. But why are Wampanoags taking care of people on Cape Verde Island? When they experienced famine, it wasn't the place called Portugal helping them out. It was the Wampanoag helping them out. And then you had one of the Cape Verdean men, Michael Douglas, whom they called a Portuguese Negro, married the great mariner Absalom Boston's sister. And he's on the census records in that area in the early 1800s. And it says here, let's continue. In 1824, Joseph da Silva, another Nantucket resident, became the first person from Cape Verde naturalized as an American citizen. And then it gets into, some other stuff here. And let me go down here. Okay, right here. Okay, right. So it says here, 1850 census for Nantucket included a list more than 630 transient seamen on Nantucket vessels. Of these, 76 were counted as Portuguese from Portugal, the Azores, Madeira, and Cape Verde, right? So there was a relationship between the Wampanoag and those islands. And we're going to get into that, why they had that relationship. Okay? So, but there's another example of a very legendary Compton Indian, a Wampanoag Indian, mariner Absalom Boston. Okay, and now we see the relationship between the Wampanoag and the Cape Verdeans. Obviously, if first of all, if it was under Portugal's jurisdiction, then that means that did Portugal have a contract with the Wampanoag to allow the Wampanoag to enter into those international waters? Or was the Wampanoag so powerful globally, they were the big honcho on the street. They were the kingpins. And every other nation was under them. They can go wherever they want because they were that powerful. And you're going to see why, family. You're going to see why. Okay? So, pull up the database of the little Compton Indians. That's 6B, A1, 6B. There it is right there on the screen, family. So, I was blessed with this, family, from the ancestors. Now, see, on my maternal line, from my grandmother, was born 1923. Her mother, Carrie Presley, born 1896. Carrie's mother, Lottie Presley, born 1847. Lottie's mother was Amarilla Gully. Okay, she's born 1832, and in South Carolina. Now, her mother, Amarilla Gully's mother, Chloe, aka Martha Gully, who's actually from Little Compton, Rhode Island. Okay, so that's why I got blessed with this information. Now I'm not really focused on that line yet. Go ahead.
Real quick, so you telling me that there's people in South Carolina with the surname Gully?
Gully, yeah, the Gullies, yeah, Gully, yes.
Like
So those
Gullo?
Gullies, yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah. So and so then the Gullies, Martha Gully, then her father, Thomas Gully, who actually died in 1817 February. He froze to death coming home in the winter, and then his wife was pregnant with Martha, and so Martha never saw her daddy, but Martha, and then but they're from that area, and this is why I got blessed with this information. So this is a database of court records and documents of Compton Indians, aka Wampanoag, Pequot, Narragansett, whatever, all organized with vital information, family. So, for example, let me blow this up here. Let's see. So we see these names here. So we see these names. So, for example, like it says here, Ann Deer, and it has here freedom status. And then you go down, it says enslaved or indentured, specific location, and then it has 30 acres. Little Compton is the town she's from, and that's in Massachusetts. That's where the Wampanoag are. And then it says here 1702. This is the document date of this record, and it was recorded February 2nd, 1703. Now in the courthouse. Now this document is actually a will, okay, and it's Elizabeth Butt, and we scrolling all the way down to the right side of the document, and it says Elizabeth Butt inherited Ann Deer from her husband Thomas Butt in his will, Bristol County probate records. But then later on, she was actually indented out to the Butt family, because her Deer's father was a major landlord. But this entire record is just hundreds and hundreds of names of of Compton Indians up in that area, family. Just incredible information. Now, let's see here. It's another article I wanted to read here to the family. Let me find that article. Okay, and of course, everyone here will get a copy of this here for your own records. So for your genealogical searches, a lot of your family members could be listed in this database here, of all of these Compton Indians, aka Wampanoag Indians there. And these are actual court records as early as the late 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s. And it's a lot of different names. And then you go down here, Baileys, the Grinnells, Fishmans, Woodman, Jeffries. You have Lynn Cooper, Solomon, Shaw, Sampson. Those names. Wanton, Palmer, that's another name. Church, you got a last name Church. You can have ancestors of Wilcox, Cook, Richmond, Collins, Thomas, Gray. And then another thing here, let me pull this up. I don't know if I sent this to A1, but let me hold on a second here. Let me see here. Matter of fact. So now, I'm going to read this here, information here. I have a cup of coffee. Pull up the Paul Cuffe travel map, A1. Put up that map. I believe that map is, got the number on that, but pull that map up. That's the title. It's not a number, it's a title. Paul Cuffe travels map. You there? Oh, his mic is muted. He should be able to hear me though. Let's see here. Yeah, so this database here, Apprentice. Now, everyone knows about the island off of Cape Cod there in Wampanoag territory called Martha's Vineyard, right? Now, Martha's Vineyard, all that's Wampanoag land. So that was part of their territory there. And they were on that island for thousands of years. And then in this database here of this Excel sheet, it has individuals from that particular area of Martha's Vineyard as well, family on here. Like here's one from 1681, Samuel. They called him an Indian youth. He was an apprentice, so he was indentured out as well. Martha's Vineyard. And this was 1681, July 1681. For the Plymouth court order. He was indentured. Indenture holder was John Tucker, okay, of Martha's Vineyard. And then so it says here, the notes, June 1681, it was ordered that Isaac, Indian magistrate, do send or cause to be sent an Indian youth named Samuel, the son of Warmsnamine, apprentice to the widow of John Tucker of Martha's Vineyard. Okay, so these are old court records here, and it was the Plymouth court orders from the Plymouth court. It's the source there. So all this, everything's in there. So when you get this for your records, it's an Excel sheet, and you have to go from left, scroll all the way to the right to read all of the information about each particular individual in the database here. Okay. And we have here, here's Mahitable Dai. Mahitable Dai is the granddaughter. She was the granddaughter of a major landowner there up in the Wampanoag territory, Little Compton. So it says her freedom status, free. She's from Compton. This document was written 1720. It was recorded 1732. It was a will from her grandfather, William Dye, right? And it says that, and he provided some, to his granddaughter, Mahitable Dye. And so think about this, family. See, our ideal of what an Indian is has been corrupted. Okay? These people were mariners, lived in towns, and the whole thing of the cultural practice of leaving assets to your offspring was their cultural practice, right? So her grandfather left her something in his will. William Dye. That was her grandfather. This is Mehitabel's grandfather, right? And this is in the early 1700s. But this was one of their cultural practices, wills and leaving assets to offspring. But that's not the image that we have of what they call an Indian. But now with this whole cold hard evidence and that we have of these old court records that no one's told us about. So we have to shift our whole mindset on what an Indian is, right? So, all right, A1, you there? I hope he didn't fall asleep there now. That cannot happen. And let's see here. So yeah, all these interesting names here. But I wanted to pull up this other article about the Slocum family. Now everyone's heard of Paul Cuffe, but his family name is Slocum. Now the interesting thing is the Slocum name is a Wampanoag name. Okay, it's a Wampanoag name. So, but what they did in their script, they wanted us to believe in their script that the Slocums were from overseas. No, Slocums. So the article talks about how the in the right after the King Philip's War, there was a Wampanoag who took a ship down to the Bahamas, and they actually they went down there to find it was a ship they were looking for, an abandoned ship that had gold and silver on it. So he went down with some of his Compton Indians down there in the Bahamas, and they recovered the gold and silver from what the article called a Spanish vessel. Now, first of all, how they knew that there was gold on that ship? How did they know its location? Because obviously it was their ship, family. Obviously. And then the article talks about in 1703, another Wampanoag mariner brought down 10 Wampanoag Indians with him to look for more treasure. And I guess that treasure would have belonged to the Wampanoag. And the article lists the 10 Wampanoag Indians with him who were specialists at diving and at recovering property from ships, sunken ships, whatever. They dive down there. They knew how to hold their breath for a long time, and they go into the ship and recover stuff and come back up. That was the specialty the Wampanoag Indians had. Now, it lists the 10 names of the Wampanoag Indians, and one of the 10 names is John Slocum. John Slocum. So so the name Slocum is a Wampanoag name, but they hijacked it to confuse us. But now we know better. So when we're talking about Paul Slocum, aka Paul Cuffe, his father Cuffe Slocum, who had to have been a mariner, and that's why it passed down to Paul, right, and so forth. But hopefully everyone can come back. If not, that article I will email everyone so you have that for your records. Okay. But yeah, so Slocum is a Wampanoag name. And that's key because we're going to get to I wanted to show Paul Slocum's map, which, hold on a second here. Let me make sure A1's around here. Can you hear me, A1? You around? A1 has to share the materials, family, because, I can't share from my screen. So he's actually, I sent all the information to him to share for us. Hopefully, here, I'm going to have to call him here. Hold on one second. A1, you there? Okay, testing. Can you hear me now, family?
Yeah, you good, Money.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the map. Okay, there's the map. So this map, family, is Paul Slocum Sr., aka Paul Cuffe Sr. Just the travel locations he went during his great career as a mariner. See, now in the Hollywood script, they tell you that Paul Cuffe was one of the first Pan Africans and all this crap. All that's crap. He was a mariner out on the seas his entire life, making money. So if he were living today, he'd be a billionaire. That's how wealthy he was. A billionaire. The entire Slocum family. Okay, so we zoom in here and we see all the places he went to. Okay, we see Portugal. We go down. We see right there Cape Verde, which we read about, where Absalom Boston was. Now Absalom Boston's after Paul Cuffe Sr. Now we see Sierra Leone. We see Santo Domingo. We see the Guadeloupe, West Indies, Caribbean, and of course they were down there in Bermuda and the Bahamas, Jamaica, all of that. Okay, and we see Liverpool, England. We see France. We see Gothenburg, Sweden, Denmark, etc. And then down here, he circumnavigated the Cape of Good Hope around South Africa. We see that. Okay, so I just wanted to give a perspective there. And now we're going to get into some of his, that was number 5, A1. There's two, well, it's not. It says it's 2 documents. A1 says ships owned by Paul Cuffe, and then the other document is a history of the Waymer Farm property in Westport. You see those documents? Right before 5B. It's the email before 5B, right after number 4 and before 5B. You see those 2 documents? Pull up the one that says ships owned by Paul Cuffe.
All right, hold on. Give me 1 second. Let me find it.
And so we're going to go the main course. Now we're still getting, this part of the main course. The main course is just divided up into small portions, family. We're not to the main one yet, but that main one is a dandy.
All right, hold on. Give me 1 second. Let me zoom out here. You said, hold on. Which one was it? Let me see.
It's right after document 4. It's just 2 documents. It says the ships owned by Paul Cuffe. And then there's another document, history of the Wayner Farm. The Microsoft Word documents. Now the Wayner family, that's another popular Wampanoag name out of Compton there. And Paul Cuffe's brother-in-law was Michael Wayner, and they went into business together. Now I showed this previously in one of my presentations, but I gotta show it again just to lead us into the main dish.
Hold on. Let me make sure I got it. This is. No, this is. You said which one was it? It was
the ships.
Which one? Which number was it?
No, it wasn't a number, but it was right after the email number 4. Right after that email 4.
Oh, okay. All right. Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, those 2 documents.
I got it. Hold on.
Now, many of you may have missed the presentation that I did on this about Paul Slocum Sr. or AKA Paul Cuffe Sr., where I showed this. So, you know, we're going to go into this briefly. Now, we just saw the map of where he went. And then remember on the previous presentation, family, I showed where Paul Cuffe Sr. went to Vienna and he traded goods and he got back cotton and he made $3,000 on that one transaction. And that was in the I believe that was in the 1780s or something. And remember, I converted that amount at that time into current currency amount, and it was like $120,000. That's just that one transaction back in his day. Okay. Now Vienna, of course, at that particular time, Vienna was in Maryland. So he went from his area up in the Northeast down to Vienna, present day Maryland, to do that particular transaction.
Hold on, give me 1 second because I guess it's still lower. Give me 1 second.
Right, but this here, I'll read the document while he's pulling it up. So ships built and owned by Paul Cuffe and his brother and his partner Michael Weiner. Let me repeat that. Ships built and owned by Paul Cuffe family. No one built their ships.
Hold on.
So 1778, he built a small sailing boat with his brother David. 1784, a 12-ton schooner that they purchased. Paul Cuffe and his brother-in-law, Michael Weiner. 1787, they built a 25-ton schooner, and they were owners of. Built it, family. Yep, that's it right there. 1792, they built a 42-ton schooner called the Mary. 1795, they built a ship called the Ranger, 65 feet, because they sold the previous ship they built, the Mary, the 42-ton one. They sold that one. In 1801, they built a 162-ton frigate called the Hero. Paul Cuffe had a 25% interest in that ship. 1806, he built a 268-ton ship called the Alpha that Paul Cuffe was 75% owner of. 1807, he built a 109-ton frigate called the Traveler that he owned. So Daddy Sr. built these ships, all right, with his partner Michael Weiner. Now let's get a little bit into the Weiner family. Pull up that next article in that same email, A1. It's called A History of the Weiner Farm. There it is right here. A History of the Weiner Farm Property in Westport, Massachusetts. And here is the brother here, a descendant. Weiner's still around, family. Still around. And this is 2022. This just a couple years ago. History of the Weiner Farm Property in Westport, Massachusetts. The Weiner Farm on Drift Road in Westport is included on the Paul Cuffe Heritage Trail because it played an important role in Paul Cuffe's story. Paul Cuffe purchased this property for his business partner and brother-in-law, Michael Wainer and sister Mary Wainer in 1799. He's still on the land. Wainers are still on the land. This was an operating farm throughout the 19th and most of the 20th century and owned by descendants of Michael and Mary Wainer. Currently, a new group of descendants is in the process of restoring the 46 remaining acres of the property and transforming it into a historical and educational site, emphasizing its American Indian heritage. A Wampanoag, Michael Wainer, a Wampanoag, okay, and his sister and Mary Cuffe Jr, who is also a Wampanoag, okay. We scroll down here to page 3. You can see photo images of the land there. The Wainer Farm on Drift Road. Okay. And then that final, the 4th page here, got some stories here. But the top page there is a photo of the current descendant, Wainer brother here. And they're still around. Okay. So we just went through some of the ships that his ancestor Thomas Wainer built with his other ancestor Paul Cuffe. All right. So before we get into the main meat, we got some other little tasty beats and treats for your family in the form of a couple of short videos to get you to understand. So now we saw the global map of the locations Paul Cuffe Sr. went to. But why was he going there? And what made them so wealthy? What made them so wealthy? Well, it was before there was crude oil, family. There was whale oil. That was the commodity. Whale oil lit the streets. All in America, all in Europe, because the street lights, you needed the whale oil, candles, all other stuff. That was the commodity. That was the precious resource. And who had a monopoly and who controlled it? The Compton Indians, a.k.a. the Wampanoag. A global industry, family. So let's get into a little bit about that. And let's start with the 7A, number 7A video, A1, 7A. Now, of course, the pale skins, they want to hijack everything. And when the talk is just that was them, but we know better. We know better. So just bob and weave the crap, and we're just going to play a little bit of it to get to the kernel, so you'll understand the level and what they were doing. Oh, there's no sound.
That's it, right?
Yeah, that's it, but we couldn't hear it. No sound.
Oh, y'all can hear it? All right, hold up. Let me, all right, hold on. Let me stop it. Let me go back here. I'm going to do it like this. Oh, no, I'm going to show the entire screen. Oh, no, I'm going to do it like this. Hold on. Do it like this.
Precious commodity, oil. This would change the social and economic dynamic of Nantucket forever. Nantucket, which was inhabited by Native Americans, was discovered by Europeans in the mid to late 1600s. From that point until 1712, the economy of Nantucket was driven by farming and trade between the Europeans and the natives. In 1712, The islanders' lives were changed forever when it was discovered that there was oil inside of whales. Nantucketers were thrown into an industry that would bring them wealth and success for the next 200 years. The Nantucket whaling industry of the 17th and 18th century propelled the women of Nantucket to encounter new leadership positions, encouraged racial diversity among captains and their crews, and led to foreign exchange that dominated the global economy. Due to the length of time whalers were at sea, sometimes up to 3 years, the women of Nantucket rose to prominent positions within the community. Along with being responsible for the well-being of their children and homes, they were business owners, merchants, artisans, and social leaders. Lucretia Mott, a civil rights activist, abolitionist, and religious reformer who was born in Nantucket in 1793, wrote about this. In a letter to Elizabeth Cady Stanton, another women's rights activist and abolitionist, Mott writes that women have long been regarded as the stronger party. This owing in some measure to so many of the men being away at sea. During the absence of their husbands, Nantucket women have been compelled to transact business. They have kept their own accounts and indeed acted the part of men. Women's suffrage activists use Nantucket as a role model because it was a prime example of a blended, equal society. In the late 18th century, Center Street became known as Petticoat Row because almost all of the shops and businesses were owned by women. Wives, sisters, and daughters left behind formed a strong bond while working together to raise their children, keep a home, and run a business. On the mainland of the United States in the 18th century, women's roles were quite different. Women were expected to restrict their interests to within the home and family and were not encouraged to receive an education or pursue a career.
Okay,
Nantucket, on the other hand, was dominated by strong, independent women who carried the local economy.
Okay, so now, of course, you know, they're going to pale wash everything, but the key point was the well oil. Now we're going to move to the next short video real quick. Number 8, A1, play number 8. But yeah, it was they controlled it. They monopolized. They have monopoly on it, and they went all around the world trading it. Okay, and before we get into the main dish,
give me 1 second. Let me pull number 8. Hold up.
He's gonna pull up this one other little video to give a little bit more information about. Now remember, dodge the hijack. It's like dodge the hijack, like Aboriginal said there. Dodge the huge hijack. So we know better. Now we just showed, Father Cuffe's global map, the places he went, and we're going to get into the main course after this particular video here. And when they pale wash all the women, we know what the women look like because those women, now we know, were Wampanoag women. So we can't fall. You no longer fall for the sorcery. Now you can break through the sorcery. And you got the database of all the Compton Indians here with the leaving wills, assets to their children. These are the people that were up there. But see, now when you have the actual records, you will never fall victim to the sorcery.
Welcome to 18th century Nantucket. Over the next 9 episodes, I'll be guiding you through the American Revolution's effect on the island and its people. During our journey, we'll be running into founding fathers like Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. We'll also talk about how the island tried to remain neutral during the war, partly because of business interests and partly because, quite frankly, most of us are Quaker pacifists. We'll also discuss the longer-term ramifications of the war and how whaling on the island was never quite the same again. But first, let's start with some good news. During the early part of the 1770s, our tiny island continued expanding into an economic powerhouse. On average, Nantucket sent out about 150 ships each year, setting sail as far as the Falkland Islands and bringing back about 26,000 gallons of sperm oil annually. Don't worry, we didn't let it get to our heads. Nantucketer and ridiculously rich businessman Joseph Roach, along with his son William, spearheaded this whaling expansion, with the family owning everything from ships to harpoons. Given this control of the whaling industry, Some did call their business practices unethical. But I say, what's wrong with opening your own candleworks, in addition to having a monopoly on whaling? Conflict of interest? More like smart businessmen. Over the years, some tried to stop the roach whaling monopoly, including one John Hancock. Both parties sent the price of whale oil skyrocketing and plummeting for a number of years before Hancock lost so much money he had to move from business to politics. Turns out, that worked out pretty well for him. Anyway, in 1773, Roach's luck started to run out as he became tangled in an event called the Tea Party. As you might imagine, didn't end well. The Tea Party may have had an innocent-sounding name. Unfortunately for Nantucketers, this event wasn't so much a party as much as it was a total economic disaster with lasting political implications. On the night of December 16, 1773, a group called the Sons of Liberty promised to make Boston Harbor a teapot in response to England's taxation without representation. Who was in the Sons of Liberty, you may ask? Well, some of the members included Paul Revere, Samuel Adams, and even John Hancock. You know, the guy who the Roaches just ran out of business. And while Nantucketers weren't taking sides in the conflict, there was one major problem. It turns out that the Roaches, coincidentally, owned 2 of the 3 ships that lost more than 90,000 pounds of tea on that night. The Sons of Liberty did feel bad that Roach was stuck in the middle, and they decided to sweep the decks of his ships to show it was nothing personal. Oh yeah, thanks guys, you're the real heroes. With that said, it's clear that the anger between Massachusetts and England was only just beginning, and Hancock wasn't the only founding father Roach would eventually be tangling with. After an action-packed Tea Party episode involving 2 of our major trading partners, Nantucketers hoped to go back to exactly the way things were. While mainland Massachusetts struggled with Britain's high taxes, we were quite happy living off of whaling in the pocketbooks of the Roach family. With that said, both sides became increasingly impatient that we were trying to remain neutral. On one hand, Massachusetts declared us Tories, and on the other, Britain said we needed to do more to stand up to the colonies. The truth is, we just needed someone to trade whale oil with. Plus, we're Quaker pacifists. We can't even go dancing or play the piano. What makes you think we could fight a revolutionary war? Unfortunately, England seemed to have other ideas. In August of 1775, they set up a blockade around the island and ordered our ships to stay in port. Even Nantucket ships that got through the blockade were likely to be caught on their way back, and many of our sailors were captured and put on prison ships. In short, Nantucketers faced an impossible decision. With no end in sight, we needed to choose between our pacifism and our business. Before the Revolutionary War, Nantucket's population stood at nearly 5,000 people. Because of ferociously cold winters and a lack of trade, about 1,600 islanders have died during the war, along with half of our sheep. You could say things are going bad. To make matters worse, a new alien duty created a steep import tax on all U.S. goods sold to England. That meant whale oil was too expensive to sell to Britain, and it was already too expensive for a war-ravaged Massachusetts. So we were on to Plan B, growing crops in Nantucket's inhospitable soil. As you can imagine, that didn't go well. William Roach had his own set of problems, losing up to $100,000 during the conflict. If that wasn't enough, Massachusetts declared high treason against him for speaking to a British military official, and he barely escaped execution. With that said, things on the island weren't as bad as they could be, thanks to some successful smuggling of food and other goods back to the island. In the next episode, we'll talk about one of the most successful Nantucket smugglers, Keziah Coffin. Despite our best efforts, trying to farm on sandy soil wasn't going as planned. This meant that Nantucketers were ready to pay for any additional food we could get our hands on, regardless of price. Enter Keziah Coffin, who utilized the American Revolution to make significant profits by smuggling goods back to the island. Keziah wasn't the only Nantucketer who got into smuggling, which was an extremely dangerous line of work. As we mentioned before, the price for Nantucketers caught during the war was a trip aboard.
Okay, family. So he mentioned some interesting names. He mentioned Paul Revere, and he mentioned John Hancock. Said John Hancock decided to get into politics after losing money. So now I didn't, I never really took a deep dive on John Hancock. Was he from Wampanoag territory? Was he a Wampanoag? Now we already know that brothers did bills on John Hancock and said that he was. We already know what he looked like physically. We already know what Paul Revere looks like physically, right? So Paul Revere is from that area, so he could have been Wampanoag as well, right? But the point is that it was all about the oil, and they had a monopoly on it. And now, family, we get into your main course. Paul Slocum Sr., aka Paul Cuffe Sr. We know about him. They lied about him. He was out on the seas for his entire life. Yes, he participated in that project of what they set up there in Sierra Leone. And I already did a presentation about all of that, right? Now, but what they didn't tell us, family, was about Junior, Paul Slocum Jr., aka Paul Cuffe Jr., who continued the family business. Pull up number 7, A1, the main meal course here. They didn't tell us about Junior, family. He continued the family business, and he wrote about it, a journal, narrative of the life and adventures of Paul Cuffe, a Pequot Indian, during 30 years spent at sea and in traveling in foreign lands. Junior's the author. Junior called himself a Pequot Indian as they were under the Wampanoag. This is his writings, his journal, detailing his adventures, family, for 30 years out in sea. And I'm gonna share it with you because this is paradigm shifting. Paradigm shifting. Okay. Let me scroll down here. So let me scroll down, blow this up here. Let's see here. Okay, yeah. So there's the title, their narrative. It's right here. You see that there. Life and Adventures of Paul Cuffe, a Pequot Indian. That's his title, what he calls himself. Okay, published 1839, family. Okay. All right. So we're going to go through this. Yep. Printed by Horace, 1839, family. Let's see what Junior says. A descendant of an Indian family, which formerly resided in the eastern part of Connecticut and constituted a part of that fierce and warlike tribe of Indians called Pequots, of whose exploits in the early wars of New England the reader may become acquainted by perusing Trumbull's History of the Indian Wars. Before we continue, let's just break that down. What did Junior call himself, family? He knows his lineage. He's a descendant of an Indian family who were what? Fierce and warlike. That's what he said. Let's continue. The subject of this narrative was born in the town of Westport, a state of Massachusetts. His father, Paul Cuffe, that's what we talked about, senior, was a seafaring man and had the command of a number of merchant vessels. Now, we already went over his list of ships that he built and owned. His father didn't call him a Pan-Africanist. I mean, the son didn't call his father a Pan-Africanist, family. What did he say? My daddy was a seafaring man and had the command of a number of merchant vessels. Merchant vessels. It was with him that I made my first voyage. When a boy of 12 years old, this was the year 1808. So if Junior was 12 in 1808, that means he was born in 1796. And again, in the Wampanoag Nation, all males must become mariners. It's passed down. No way around it. On the morning of a pleasant day in the month of May of that year, we hoisted sail and stood out for the sea. There were 16 hands on board. This was new business to me, and with the novelty attending a sea voyage, I was highly pleased. Nothing uncommon attended this voyage, which was made to Passamaquoddy. That's an Indian nation that we read about on the back of that cover. What was it called? A sea turtle. Remember I read the back of that cover about Absalom Boston? That young boy was from this nation.
Hey, hold up real quick. Because it's clearly saying that they Pequot Indians, right?
Yes.
Now, at that point in time, when we got some interesting characters who claim that they are from the descendants, the Nassagari, the Pequot, and the Wampanoag. But when you talk to them, they tell you that their people have fucking canoes, man.
Okay, well, all that's going to get exposed tonight, bro.
I just want to put that out there. That these ain't no canoes. These don't sound like canoes. I just want
we just read his daddy's the ships he built 162 tons and 4. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right, continue.
We made this voyage down in about 10 days. After loading our vessel, which took 2 weeks, we again set sail for Wilmington in Delaware, at which port we safely arrived in 16 days, discharged our freight, took in ballast and 300 bushels of apples, and sailed for Savannah in Georgia, where we arrived without any incident to mar the pleasure of the voyage. In about 20 days, where we again discharged our freight and reloaded our vessel with cotton, rice, and logwood. Here we lay 3 months in making preparation for sea again. Now, let's stop right there, because this is interesting how Junior gives us details of how things operate on a ship. So when they pull into a port, they have to refit the ship, because it's going to get damaged arriving. So they have to refit it, repair it, and it takes a few weeks for them to go back out again. So let's continue here. From this place, we made out into the broad Atlantic.
Hold up. When me and you was talking about this, right? Remember when we say that? All right, okay. So now these are Indians. Now they just said they had to replenish the ship, right? Yes. So you say these are Indians, right? Clearly, right? Yes. So obviously they're doing business with other nations around, because they said they went into Delaware, right?
Delaware, Savannah, Georgia, yes.
Okay, so now you're saying that when they pull into these ports, that they have to stay in that area or in that territory for about a week or two, right? While they fix the ship, right?
Yep. Right after they do their sales transactions, they got to refit the ship. Yes.
All right. So now this is what we've been thinking, right? These ports are when they traveled around. This is how they was able to transverse throughout the nations, or transverse throughout the area, because they had other nations that was trading with them, that was all part of the same, like, how do you want to say, they was all part of the same industry for them to be able to stop. So these are Indians who got ships. So now it's already understood that Indians got ships, right? So now they traveling through Delaware and they traveling through Savannah, Georgia. So obviously other Indians in them areas also got ships and ports.
Exactly. Yes.
They got layover quarters.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Continue.
Okay. From this place, we made out into the broad Atlantic, with all sails fluttering in the balmy breeze, and all hands full of hope and buoyant with expectation. This was a long, tedious voyage, as the reader will readily imagine when I inform him that we sailed a great number of days in a northward direction until we made the Grand Banks. Then we steered away for the northern coast of Scotland, which we reached in about 50 days. Thence we continued our course around the Orkneys into the Northern Sea and made that entrance into the Baltic through what is called the Sleeve. Thence along the coast of Copenhagen, northward to Gothenburg, a flourishing town in West Gothland in Sweden. Here we lay 6 weeks, sold our lading, and took in a load of iron, steel, and hemp. From thence we sailed for Ellesnor, a seaport of Denmark, where we took in a number of passengers for Philadelphia. Let's stop right there. Now we saw his daddy's map. Now he's over in Europe. Sweden, Germany, Gothenburg's Germany, Copenhagen, the Baltics. Then he pulls into Denmark. Not only are they're selling their goods, which is well oil, and receiving goods, but they're generating other streams of income by taking passengers from Denmark to Philadelphia. Now think about this, family. The Denmark didn't have their own ships. They're waiting on Wampanoag ships to get back to America. Let's continue. Passengers for Philadelphia, at which place we arrived after a long passage, sometime in the month of September 1809. During this voyage, we had much rough weather, so much so that we were compelled to throw overboard 50 tons of iron while on the Grand Banks. During this gale, we lost our foretop mast, jig boom, and longboat. So they hit rough weather, family, but they're remember they're master mariners, and they realized that we got to get rid of some of this iron, and they threw 50 tons of iron overboard. They lost the gale. They lost one of their longboats. But they made it. And then, but now it's interesting because he gives us, dates like 55 days to reach from the Northeast to Europe. It took them 55 days, he said. And then, of course,
tons though. But hold up. Wait, hold on. Let's stop for a minute, man. 50 tons, brother. You understand? Look, my pickup truck weighed 3 tons. Okay? My pickup truck is 3 tons, brother. And it's maybe about 12 feet long, right? 12 feet long, maybe about another 7 or 8 foot wide, right? If so, maybe 6 to 7 feet wide, right? So a pickup truck is 3 tons, right? So we saying 50 tons. They do 50 tons of iron overboard. Think about that.
That ship had to have been about at least 300 plus tons, right? The ship itself.
Like, okay, the 3 tons aside, we talking about like, okay, if a pickup truck is 3 tons, and you know how big a pickup truck is, 50 tons of iron? That's a lot of iron, man. Like, just think about that. Now, we talking about Indians. We talking about people who supposed to be some goddamn hunter-gatherers. I just want to interject that, but continue.
Okay. At this port, we sold our load, after which my father put me in high school in Williams Alley. Now, let me stop right there because what the sorcerers do, when you read the story on Absalom Boston family, they tell you, oh, yeah, his daughter, he had to fight to get his daughter in school because they didn't let, quote unquote, African Americans in school. Total sorcery crap. So wait a minute. They're going to let Absalom Boston be a mariner, a billionaire in his day, but yet his daughter couldn't go to school? Come on, people. The pale skins were not in power. It's clear through this evidence. If it wasn't clear before, it's going to be clear now. We're going to pull you out of that movie script into reality. Let me continue. Where he went to high school in Williams Alley, where I remained 2 years. This was an excellent school, taught by a friend Quaker, a very worthy man whom I shall ever have cause to respect for his many acts of kindness towards me. After the close of my term at school, I returned home to Westport after an absence of 3 years and 5 months. If the reader has ever been a long while absent from home, he can easily imagine my feelings on my arrival at the dear paternal mansion. Didn't I tell you that Daddy was wealthy? In modern day, he'd be a billionaire. Not a wampum tent, not a little shack. What did he call it? The paternal mansion. His daddy had a mansion, family. Here,
Hold up, man. Hold up. I'm just trying to I'm just trying to grasp this shit, right? So they show you the wampum. We got this clown Tuhawk Nasagari, right? Who run around here, and when he show you his culture, they show you some fucking trees merged together. That's a wampum, right?
Yes.
And they go about their way of making these historical museums showing you that these people primitive, and you telling me these niggas is throwing 50 tons of iron over, and they not crying about it, right? It's no sweat. Fucking, we threw 50 tons over, cool. We still had enough supplies or enough goods to still make a profit from, right? And then you telling me that they living in mansions?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Continue.
Here I again saw my father and mother, brothers and sisters, where I remained but 3 weeks before I again left the fireside of my dear parents to launch out upon the broad Atlantic's briny bosom. At the expiration of the above term, I shipped aboard of the big traveler, Captain Thomas Wayner. Let's stop right there. Now remember, we read all the ships built by Paul, his daddy, and his business partner, Thomas Wayner. One of the ships was the Traveler. It's the ship that he's talking about. He's boarding right now, the Traveler, captained by his uncle, Thomas Wayner. Now, the Traveler was 109 tons, family. Now, let's continue here. I shipped aboard the brig Traveler, Captain Thomas Wayner, for Kennebec, the state of Maine. On our passage to this place, our vessel capsized about 10 o'clock at night, which caused us much trouble to get her righted again. But after 4 hours struggle, and by the aid of our great Father, we got the ship to right and went on our passage, which we finished in about 7 days from this event. Here we sold our loading and took in a load of pine lumber. At this place, we were detained but about 10 days, when we again hoisted sail for Westport, where we arrived in 10 days thereafter. Here I tarried with my family but 4 weeks before I again shipped aboard of the last named vessel for Lisbon in Portugal, where we arrived after a rough passage of 45 days. Now that's interesting. So from Compton, or New Westport, which is the northeast, to Lisbon, Portugal, It took them 45 days. It's a month and a half. Our lading was 525 barrels of whale oil, which we sold at Lisbon. While at this place, we heard the roar of the cannon and an engagement between a division of the army of the great Napoleon and the English and Portuguese troops. And the night after this battle, the writer saw 500 wounded soldiers brought into Lisbon to have their wounds dressed. In this engagement, the English and Portuguese repelled the army of Napoleon and caused them to fall back a number of miles. Here we tarried about 4 months and took in 180 sheep, being the second load ever taken to the United States. So they took back, they were 5 months in Portugal, and they actually came back with 180 sheep, which was a pretty big load to take back home. And besides these, we took in salt and wine. Our passage back to Westport was made in 35 days. Here we tarried but 1 week, and again, after taking in ballast, proceeded to sea and steered away for Edenton, North Carolina, at which port we arrived in 16 days. So that's interesting. So from the Northeast to North Carolina, it's 16 days. And he says here we were detained about 6 weeks. After loading our brig and shingles and herring, we again stood out for sea and made for St. Domingo, an island in the West Indies, peopled by free blacks, having a republican form of government. The West Indies family, St. Domingo. Melanated people with a republican form of government.
Stop. All right, hold up. So here it is. We already know what Paul Cuffe looked like, right? We already know what he looked like. We already know at this point in time that the Pequots are Negroes, the Nassau Garrett, the Wampanoag, the Massachusetts. We know that these are black people, or what we consider to be black people today, right? And then he said they go down to the Caribbean. So they traveling everywhere, and it don't seem like nobody's stopping them. Nobody's checking them. Nobody's like, you know what I'm saying? There's no Europeans that's trying to enslave them or do nothing because they traveling from the Americas to Portugal. They traveling from the Americas to Portugal. That's something that's, huh?
Yeah, Portugal, Denmark, Germany, Sweden, France. Yeah, all those places. We just read it.
Okay. And so now they saying that when they go to the Caribbean, that the people in the Caribbean has a republic. Like, I hope you guys listening to what's going on, because this is very interesting. That's why I said when I first heard this, I was astonished. I was like, this is next level. This is definitely next level. But go ahead and continue. I mean, you already know I'm gonna stop just to ask questions.
Oh yeah,
Get some clarity, man.
During this passage, we encountered heavy gales of wind and came very near being shipwrecked, but we were all preserved. And in 16 days from the time we set sail, we made Port-au-Prince. So from St. Domingo to Port-au-Prince, it took them 16 days. This is a large seaport town situated between two high mountains. This place is the residence of our chief magistrate of the nation. Robert Boyer, was then clothed with the presidential power. This personage was of commanding aspect and appeared to be a mulatto. He used every day to call out his bodyguard, who were a fine-looking set of fellows. They appeared to understand military tactics to perfection. They were elegantly dressed in red frocks and trousers, faced with blue and green. On the whole, they might be called first-rate soldiers. Boyer was most superbly dressed and equipped, and on horseback made an elegant appearance. Now, let's just back this up, because he's talking about the king of Haiti, okay, and how Haiti had a powerful military. Now before he was talking about the engagement of Napoleon. So this is right during this time. Now, Haiti, family, if you didn't know, was the number one economy in the entire Caribbean. When it comes to cotton and sugar, Haiti was number one. Haiti was very wealthy. And now we see a relationship between Haiti and the Wampanoag. See, remember, this here is what I was telling you. This journal from Junior details his travels and these ancient trade networks and trade routes. This is ancient. It didn't start with him and his daddy. These are ancient relationships. Okay, let's continue. This is an unhealthy place for strangers, our crew being mostly sick while there. We stopped at this place about 3 weeks, during which time we took in cargo of coffee and sugar, like I just told you. From this port, we sailed sometime in October 1812. At this time, the government of my native country, the Wampanoag, and Great Britain were at war. This is the War of 1812. The War of 1812 was the Wampanoag against Great Britain, family. During this voyage, which was made to New York, we were chased by a British man of war for more than 4 hours while off Bermuda. But we outsailed her and made our escape. When off Cape Hatteras, we lost our fore topsail during a heavy squall of wind. We reached a quarantine at New York after a passage of 13 days. Here we had to lay for 3 days for the purpose of being examined by the health officer, after which we went up to the city where we discharged our freight, which took about 1 week, when we again sailed for Westport, the place of my nativity. Here I saw my father and mother, with whom I stayed but 5 weeks before I again left my peaceful home and all the many little endearments which always surround the paternal mansion for New Bedford, a seaport town in the southeastern part of Massachusetts, where I shipped aboard the Atlas, a whaleman bound to the Brazil Banks. Now he's off to Brazil. We hoisted sail just a night and steered away in an east-northeastern direction until we crossed the Grand Banks, and then stood away for the Azores, where after 20 days' sail, we made the island of Carvo, one of that group of islands. Here we stopped a few days and took in 500 bushels of potatoes and 100 bushels of onions. There was no harbor in this place, so we were obliged to go ashore in our boats. The people brought down the above articles on their backs. Men, women, and children were all engaged in supplying us with the above articles. We paid them in oil, of which they were very fond. What they do with it, I know not. They were a very kind people to strangers, but poor. From this place we sailed for Cape de Verdes, the Cape Verde Islands, on the coast of Africa. We were 42 days in sailing from the former to the latter island. We touched at the island of Buena Vista, one of the group of islands, where we took in 32 hogs, for which we paid corn, meal, and bread. These people are of a very dark hue and speak the Portuguese language. Here we stopped but 4 days, when we set all sails and steered away a southeast-west course for the Brazil Banks, where we arrived after a sail of 42 days. So it looks like from those Cape Verde Islands, family, to Brazil, it's a 42-day time travel there to get there. And he says here, these people on these islands of the Cape Verde are very, very melanin rich, very dark complected, and they all speak Portuguese. Here we commenced fishing for whale, but for a time we had bad luck. Owing to the drunken habits of our captain, we sunk 12 whales before we caught one. Then we caught 6 in the course of 2 weeks. I harpooned all these and assisted in taking and towing them alongside the ship. Now let's stop right here because I want to explain how they catch whales. So what they have, so now they're on the main mothership, the big ship, and that ship will have boats on it, and so they go out. 6 boats each will approach the whale, and then they'll stick these harpoon like spears, but not to kill it, but just to latch on to it, because then what happens? The whale will panic and take off, and will pull the boat miles, but then the whale will become tired, and at that point, when the whale, is winded and tired, then the main guy with the main weapon to kill the whale kills the whale with the spear, and then at that point, that one boat will tow the whale back to the mothership, which could take hours. So that's how they did it. And once they reached the mothership, on the side of the ship, they had a little thing that they created to cut up the whale, right? But that's how they did it there. I harpooned all these and assisted in taking and towing them alongside the ship. After we get a whale alongside, we hitch our blubber hooks into the head after severing it from the body. Then with our windlass, draw it aboard and dip the oil out, which sometimes amounts to more than 50 barrels. After this, we commence cutting the whale in a circular manner with our spades. Then we hitch the blubber hooks into the commencement next to where the head was taken off. And by pulling at the windlass, take a large piece, which will usually tried and strained, produce 10 barrels of oil. Before heaving on board this piece, another hook is fastened below the one we took off. When this is done with a cross blow from the spade, the first piece is separated from the rest of the whale. Then the cutting is continued in the same manner as before, and another piece torn off and swung aboard. This operation keeps the whale constantly rolling over until the mass of flesh is stripped from the carcass, which is then permitted to float off or sink, and it becomes the sport of sharks, who feed upon the little flesh which remains after it has gone through the hands of the whalemen. Here we stayed but 6 weeks before we took in 1,600 barrels of oil. This was about 300 miles off the coast of Brazil. From this place, we set sail with our cargo about the middle of June 1813 for New Bedford, where we arrived in 57 days. So from the coast of Brazil to his home up in New Bedford, Compton, it took 57 days, family. Nearly, 2 months?
And notice, they're not talking about they working for no white man. They're not talking about no white people put them up to it. So that will obviously show you how the Aborigines were seafarers, and we was transversing this whole entire globe. Like just think about it, right? A whale is a big ass goddamn fucking sea creature, right? Like, who would come up with the idea if most of us, if we see a goddamn well, we gonna go the other way, and we probably won't go back out in the water. That would be something that will probably traumatize the most people, to see a big ass fucking well, right? Not less to do what they just did, stick multiple harpoons in it and then rip the flesh apart. And then I would assume that they had some type of device that pulls the goddamn oil out of the vessel while it's in the ocean.
Well, as he was, they had the contraptment on the side of the ship, and when they tow it in to the mothership, they'll put the well on the side of the ship, and it was kind of that contraption would lift the well up and allow them to cut through it. And that's what I was reading before, how they were cutting up the pieces and draining out the well and separating parts of the well, etc. Yeah, so it was very, very. Remember, this is a practice that's thousands of years passed down from their ancestors to them.
So now, but we talking about we not saying we know we gotta sit here and think about it. If they was doing this for thousands of years, there's no way they could have did this in those goddamn canoes. That well would have, them canoes would have been flipped over, brother. There's no way possible they could have did in no canoes. These are hundreds of tons vessels that's being manufactured by men. You understand? So it's like, to even think about this, man. They're not saying no white people showed them. When he first started, it started off by saying he was a Pequot Indian. You understand? And then he's going to multiple different ports. Nobody is kidnapping them. Nobody is fucking putting them on no plantations, right? They going to multiple places, and then they ain't even talking about no slaves. He telling you he's seeing free Negroes that are Republicans, right?
Yep, they had their own Republican form of government.
Oh man, all right. Let me mute up, man. I just wanted to add that just to get some clarity and just to visualize this stuff, because reading it, you have to kind of visualize it as you're reading it, because most people will glance over it. Well, I ain't gonna say most people, because part of reading is imagination, right? When you read something, you imagine in the words that they're using, and then in your mind you trying to picture it, right? So like I said, man, shout out to my brother Amani, man, and like I said, man, just the fact that if people wasn't free thinkers, and if they went along with what everybody else be talking about. We got 41 people. We had a little bit more than that. It was about 50 at the max or whatever. But the individuals that's listening to this, I'm quite sure this is definitely something that's extraordinary. Just as far as the information and the history is concerned. And we have people within our community that was pretty much trying to hate on this information and stopping this information from coming out. So shout out to my brother Amani, man. Shout out to everybody that purchased a ticket, man. And shout out to the people that's in the chat room, man. Hopefully y'all enjoying the bill. I'm gonna mute up, but go ahead. Peace to God, man.
Okay, we were left Brazil and went back home. It took 57 days, and we were about 5 days unloading ship, after which the hands were paid off. So they paid everyone off and discharged. After this, I went again to visit my parents at Westport, where I stayed but 2 weeks before I went to Philadelphia across land and shipped aboard the Dorothea, a letter of Marquis brig Captain Aaron Pitney, bound to St. Jago, loaded with flour and hoop pools. This brig mounted 10 guns. When out 2 days, we fell in with an English brig of 10 guns, guns are cannons, family, to which we gave chase and fought her for about 2 hours. When she got away from us, we being unable to gain upon her in consequence of having our rigging badly cut to pieces. In this action, we lost 2 men killed and the captain badly wounded. About 3 days after the above action, about 4 a.m., we discovered an English frigate, which gave chase to us and fired several guns, none of which reached us. This vessel was outsailed and left far behind by 2:00 p.m. 8 days after this chase, we reached St. Jago and discharged our freight. Here we tarried 3 weeks and sold the brig to a Spanish gentleman. We then took passage to the American schooner Mary. Now, Mary was the ship his daddy built in 1792. 42-ton schooner. Bound to Alexandria in the District of Columbia upon the River Thames. Now, isn't that interesting? We think the River Thames is across the water in England. There's a River Thames in D.C. This vessel had been trading under an English license and had been taken by the schooner Rollo of Baltimore. Her captors were sending her home as a prize. Of this we were not acquainted until we had got out to sea. Okay, now let's get kind of scroll down here. So actually, Junior gets into a little problem family where he was actually captive for a while by pirates and down in Jamaica. Okay, but I want to kind of now remember everyone here is going to get a copy of this for your records, so you have this. I want to kind of get down to another portion here with the family here. Okay. When he gets back home. Here. Okay, here. Okay. Okay. The next trip which I made to sea was in the brig America of 200 tons. William Daggett, master or captain. We sailed from Boston with a crew of 10 men and 25 passengers on a cruise to New Orleans, which we made in 20 days. While opposite Cape Florida, we fell in with a pirate schooner, which gave chase to us by coming down upon our larboard quarter and giving us a gun which passed through our bulwark. Our captain at this juncture had advised a surrender of our vessel, but the mate declared he would not give up if the men would stand by him. The passengers told him that they would fight as long as there was a man left. They then stripped off their coats and we cleared for action. We then fired a broadside which cut away the pirate's main mast and killed several of her crew. We fired several broadsides, and the passengers fired the small arms to good effect. For the enemy soon wore away to windward and got off as soon as possible by means of their oars. We saw several dead bodies floating in the water, belonging to the pirate crew. We had but one man wounded and none killed. We stayed at New Orleans 3 weeks, took in a load of cotton, and again sailed for Providence. That's Rhode Island, that's Compton area, where we arrived after a passage of 30 days. Here we discharged our cargo and took in a set of ballast, and after staying about 20 days, we again set sail for Richmond in Virginia. After flour, we took in 1,700 barrels of flour at Richmond, Virginia, and after staying about 3 weeks again, set sail for Boston, where we arrived after a sail of 15 days. Here we were paid off and discharged, after which I went home to New Bedford, my parents at this time being dead. Here I stayed until the next June 1817, when I shipped aboard the Alexander Barclay, Captain Joseph Dunbar, bound to Baltimore for cotton, fustick, and tobacco stocks. Okay, so his parents died, and he goes back out there selling there. After loading our vessel with the above articles, we set sail for Bremen, a town in Germany, on the river Weser. We had 3 passengers, Dr. Jameson, wife, and daughter. We were 4 weeks in loading our vessel and 30 days on our passage to Bremen. We had an excellent captain. At Bremen, which is Germany, we stayed but 3 weeks, discharged our freight, took in ballast and 2 passengers, a Swedish lady and her daughter. From here, we sailed to Gothenburg, which took 15 days. Here we took in a load of iron, stayed 4 weeks, and again set sail for New Bedford, which place we reached in 47 days thereafter. So Oh, here we went north about between Scotland and the Faroe Islands, family. Beautiful islands up in Europe. Um, when on the banks, we saw large islands of ice which contain a number of hundred of acres, and some of them 150 feet high. We arrived at New Bedford about the 1st of January, 1818. Now remember, he took in passengers, a Swedish lady and her daughter, and they, um, and took them to Gothenburg, and which took 16 days. So they're constantly creating other streams of income, taking in passengers when they arrive at a particular port, taking them to destinations as well.
Hey, show me where you at, man, because I got caught up in the story and shit. I ain't even moving no more. I got caught up in the story. The story is definitely a nice read. Where are you at? I'm trying to keep up.
I'm on the part where it says you see where it said we stayed at New Orleans 3 weeks. The next voyage I made, that next paragraph.
It's in this part right here.
Stayed at New Orleans 3 weeks. Beginning, you see that?
Oh, all right, okay, all right, okay, all right.
Now that go down to the next paragraph. The next voyage that I made was with Captain Joseph Gardner. See that?
Damn, you got me. Shit, I don't know if I'm tired or what. I'm trying to find it. It's in this passage though, right here, right?
Yeah, yes, it was after that one there. Yes, the next paragraph. Yep.
Oh, this one.
Okay. No, right. So let's continue because let's continue here.
All right, let's go.
Okay. So the next voyage I made was with Captain Joseph Gardner to Matanzas and the ship William for molasses, coffee, and sugar. This was in the year 1820. Now let's stop it. Everyone should know where Matanza is. Does everyone know where that's Cuba? It's Cuba for molasses, coffee, and sugar in 1820. The seas were thickly invested with pirates at this time, which detained us 18 days after we were loaded. Captain Porter at this time lay off Matanzas and the sloop Peacock. He had a number of schooners also under his command, 2 of which convoyed us with 60 other merchantmen across the Bahama banks. The next fall, I went on another voyage in the Mary. Now, the Mary is another ship his daddy built. Captain Joseph White to St. Thomas, island of St. Thomas, for molasses, which we carried to Boston. So they were out doing business, family. And
sound like they doing all type of hustling. You said they had a couple of fucking pounds of flour, so it just seemed like
flour from Virginia. Yeah, from Virginia, flour.
And yeah, this is interesting. I gotta run through this one when I get a chance.
Okay, I want to start with this one here. After the death of my friend, I stayed about a week and then left that place and went to Pata. Now, we know where Pata is, right, family? That was a famous port, which is a seaport town. Pata is Peru. Pata was a very popular seaport in Peru. Here I stayed, but about 1 month before again I shipped on board a whaler called the Mechanic. After leaving this port, we went down to Tombas, where we took in potatoes, squashes, onions, and watermelons. We then steered away for the offshore ground, which is about 3,000 miles west of the coast of Peru. Here we took 2 whales, after which we steered away west until we came to the Rupere Islands. But we did not land here on account of the ferocity of the natives, who were armed with heavy carved war clubs. The land appeared to be good, but was mountainous back from the shore. The people were almost white, but very savage in their appearance and went almost naked. So we're talking about islands off of Peru. Now on Peru you got a lot of the fair skinned people there with the long straight black hair. This is who he's talking about, and this is 1820. So they were pale and very savage in their appearance and went around naked. What little clothing they had was made of grass woven to species of cloth. This they tied around their waists. It reached down before nearly to their knees. These people have never permitted the missionaries to live among them, but they worship idols made of stone. They raise potatoes and oranges of the vegetable kind, and of the animal, hogs. Of these latter, we purchased a hog that would weigh 2 bundled pounds for one whale tooth. So they exchanged a whale tooth for a hog, family.
A whale tooth.
Yeah.
So they doing all types of trading and bartering.
Yeah, this is way over in Peru. So now I want to get to some other portions here. Steam in Chicago. Okay, right here. This is interesting. Okay. After discharging our freight at Old Town on the Vineyard, I went home to New Bedford, where I stayed 3 months. When I again shipped aboard of a whaler called the Delight, Captain Philip Sanford. Our voyage was made to St. Domingo in 28 days. Here we commenced fishing, but catch nothing but black fish, which we sold for potatoes, oranges, squashes, etc. We then went down upon the Jamaican coast, where we caught 7 sperm whales. After this, we went into Mexico Bay, where we took 4 more whales. Then we went to the Western Islands, where we caught 3 more large whales. We then stopped at Flores. Now, let me stop right there, family. You know where Flores is, family? The island of Flores. It's in Indonesia. It's in Indonesia. Hold on one second here, because I gotta show this. Got to show this here. So Indonesia. He's way over there in Indonesia, and I want to show you what the people look like on that island of Flores. Let's see here, right here. Okay. I'm going to quickly email you this photo of a warrior from Flores, A1. I want you to quickly show this image. So on Flores, they took in potatoes, onions, chickens, pumpkins, and squashes. We stopped at several other of these group of islands on our way home. So there's a whole group of islands now. One of those islands in that area is Bali. I went to Bali, a few times. It's a beautiful island, and Flores is right next to it. And I just sent A1 a photo of one of those warriors on that island, so the family can know what they look like. Did you get that?
Yeah, I got it.
Now, this photo image of this warrior it was taken in 1939. Okay. Now here, where Paul Cuffe Jr. is on this island in the early 1830s. But when you talk about these ancient trade routes and networks with these people. So these people on these locations know the Wampanoag ship when they come. They know they're getting oil, right? And then they do trade. These are ancient trade relationships. And for them to freely go all over the world to dominate and monopolize that trade, which means they had to protect it. They had to have a military to protect that resource to prevent other nations from trying to get in on the whale oil trade. And they dominated that for nearly 300. Well, they say 300 years because they talk about modern period from the 1600s to the late 1800s, but they've been doing this for thousands of years. And we were gone 8 months on this voyage after unloading our ship. A1's going to be showing that photo in a second, family, but I'm going to continue reading. I stayed at New Bedford but a few weeks before I again left home on a visit to the state of New York to see a cousin that I had not seen for more than 18 years. This man lives in the town of Stockbridge, a county of New York, a county of Madison, New York. And his name's Michael Weiner. Okay, now we just saw the article. I showed the family of the Weiner family and the Weiner farm. His cousin Michael was living in New York at this time, a man of good property and of respectable standing. I stayed at his place until the spring of 1838. I went to Buffalo and shipped aboard the steamer Wisconsin bound to Detroit in the state of Michigan. We had 250 passengers with their goods on board. The next trip that we made was to Chicago in the state of Illinois. On our return passage, I hurt my foot while taking in wood in Cleveland, Ohio. After this, I boarded a few days in Buffalo, but my foot continued hurting. I returned to Stockbridge, New York in 1838, and here I stayed the rest of the season. I think the people of this place are industrious and respectable, as in any place which I have been acquainted. They are principally immigrants from the New England states. Oh yeah, listen to this. Let's back up here. Stockbridge, New York, when I arrived in the month of June 1838. Here I labored for several persons in the course of the season. I think the people of this place are as industrious and respectable as in any place with which I have been acquainted. They are in general good, have few poor people among them. Than most of the places which I have visited, are very civil and courteous to strangers. They are principally immigrants from New England states. This town is beautifully situated, having the Oneida Creek running from south to north through its center. Upon this stream are a number of sawmills. Here would be an excellent place for erecting factories of cotton or wool. From the center of this town to the Utica, that's Utica, Syracuse, up in northern New York, there is a railroad running 7 miles. This town produces excellent winter wheat, corn, rye, barley, and oats. It is called one of the richest towns in the state of New York. Now, that northern part of New York family is part of the, what's that nation up there, A1, up in northern New York?
North New York. Are you talking about the Shinnecock?
Yeah, the Shinnecock.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's basically saying that Shinnecock were industrious up there at that time, and they produced great wheat, corn, rye, barley, and oats. They had a train running for 7 miles, connecting, along that creek, the Oneida Creek River. They had a train running there and industries there, and we're doing very well.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, all this trading and then oil And you telling me that they had trains and stuff, and these are independent places. These are
And this is how he ends his journal, family. He says, "I now take leave of those who may hereafter peruse this relation of events through which the winter has passed during his stay among earth's travelers. May heaven's choicest blessings ever be theirs, together with the innumerable comforts which are the attendants of an earthly pilgrimage. Goodbye. Stockbridge, New York, March 18th, 1839. Paul Cuffe Jr." There you have it, family. We have Junior's journal of his adventures detailing the global trade network that they dominated because they had, at that time, the main resource that everyone needed was the whale oil, and they grew very wealthy. So this industry, they dominated for thousands of years, family, up until the somehow it got hijacked, and and things happened, and now these people are called African Americans. What's cursed to cut them off from their heritage of being those Compton Indians, those Wampanoag Indians, because they can cut them off from that. They can cut them off from their inheritance. But some of this still connected. We saw the article of the Wayner farm. They're still around, those heirs. They're still on their land. But unfortunately, the majority of us were cut away. But now we have these pieces of evidence and these facts that our ancestors blessed us with to get back to make and reclaim your inheritance, family. So we see a whole network traveling to all places in North America, all these ancient relationships, getting the products, cotton in Georgia, flour in Virginia. So these are these old relationships. Okay, so everyone will get a copy of this here journal from Junior. I'll send everyone who participated the database with the Compton Indian family names from the court records of the 16, 17, 1800s. Yeah, so basically anything here, we all have your emails. Now you have my email as well. So everyone can, email me, and then I could start sending out these, all of these sources and the information that I share with the family. Everyone can have that there. Okay, so it's late. I'd like to thank everyone for participating. And again, I hope you're full. I know it was a lot there, and it was definitely a well worth investment because this is the kind of real information, valuable information that we need to change our lives. And this is our purpose, our true purpose, family, is to share information, valuable information to change lives and to help each other accomplish that. Right? So that's my purpose. Um, and I know we're distracted, but let's not fall for any other distractions. We need to share out information with each other to help us, claim our inheritance and our legacies and hell, industries. It's just not not only land we have to reclaim, but they control global industries. And of course, after this family, it was crude oil from the late 1800s. And of course, who controlled that from its beginnings was um, um, the Muskogee Nation. I showed in Solomon Jones' video all the first America's oil barons were Muskogee Creek from the late 1800s up until 1940, 1950, before they shipped it out to Saudi Arabia. So we start the global industries. We start the industries, family. All right. So yeah, all this information, just reach out to me. all those that participated, and then you'll get everything here. You get, Charles Page's patent for the airplane, all this stuff, the documents for Professor Smith suing Jesse Jackson, and everything else there, family. So again, thanks everyone for participating. And this is how we have to do it, because if this was public on YouTube, this presentation would have been cut off right in the middle. Everyone knows that. So this is, whenever I'm blessed again with this kind of information that I have to share, then this is how we have to do it. It has to be private. We may use Zoom next time, because then it will allow me to screen share myself there. But thanks to A1 for giving us use of this platform there. You still there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Yeah. So and I appreciate everyone participating there. I know it's getting late, but I know you may not be able to sleep after this information, family. But now you get it in your hands for your library, and to help you continue your own research, because this is the valuable sources that we need along this journey here.
I gave everybody the passage that you was reading from the
Okay, cool, awesome, awesome.
The life and adventures of Paul Cuffe.
Yeah, I know you are. Divine's wired. She's not going to be able to go to sleep. But see, again, we've been programmed of what a so-called Indian is, family. But after today, you have to ship your whole idea of what an Indian is.
That shit says clear. The life and time of Paul Cuffe, Pequot Indian. Come on, man. During the 30 years spent at sea, traveling in foreign lands. And it seem like these lands is the same way it is now, where they got ports and you know what I'm saying, and they got trades and everything. It don't sound like nobody being detained. They oh shit, they go a nigga capture them and put them on a plane. Like it ain't nothing like nigga just like you got niggas obviously moving around and ain't nobody looking at them like, oh, they go a nigga, get them, put them on a plantation, or he been Shanghai or Blackbird or whatever they be calling that when they capture somebody. This man moving around freely, and they pretty much hustling different resources. The root.
Did you ever get that picture of that Flores warrior?
Oh yeah. I got that up.
Show that real quick.
Let me see. Hold up.
Thank you, Aboriginal. Thank you, and have a good night there. Monaga, appreciate you, Mr. Tom Jones. Everyone in the chat there. Right, so here it is right here, family. So this is what people on that island, St. Flores, look like. This is a warrior. Okay? It's a warrior right there.
And he got long hair. Look at his head.
Yeah. Yep. That's in Indonesia. Now that photo's 1939. So there's 100 years before Junior is doing business with people on this island. Think about that. So these ancient routes and trade networks for thousands of years been trading back and forth. See, people been going around the earth forever, traveling. Was it by, during Junior's time, it wasn't by plane, it was by ships that his daddy built. And those before his father, because all those skills were passed down generationally.
Yeah, this is definitely interesting. And there was some things in here I was reading as you was going through it, and when it got to, it was a certain part in here. You forgot to go into the Pacific, because we did see.
Well, yeah. He went to the Pacific. He went as far as Hawaii, but I don't want to read the entire deal there. Everyone's going to have it for their own records, so you better go through the entire journal.
It says the South American
Pacific
Welling Grounds. So they was all the way in South America, the Pacific Welling Ground. They was over here on the Pacific area. Like, look, you know what I'm saying? Like, look at the areas, and then we talking about, and he's saying life of a Pequot Indian. They specified that shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? They specified it. South America Pacific Welling Ground. So they was all the way over here catching and hunting whales. So definitely interesting. Definitely some interesting information. You saying what? So with the oil, what this, you know, because you didn't really touch exactly what they was doing with the oil. What was they doing with the oil?
So the oil lit the streets, because they had the lamps, the street lamps, to light all the streets up around the world at the time, in all of these, you know, major cities around the world. North America at the time, it was the whale oil that lit the street lamps, and they also used it for candles. They used it to make soap. It was many different uses, but the main use, when it was going to Europe, they were selling it because that's how they lit the streets. So at night, when they had these streets lit, and these lamps needed the whale oil to, you know, to fire up and stay lit. So that's why it was so valuable. And then they had other uses for it. It was used to lubricate trains and all kinds of other steel mechanical equipment as a lubricant to light the lamps that they use. Yeah, it was just, and it was the major resource. Is why they grew so wealthy, and they had a monopoly over it.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, so for just some random people or random Indians to be traveling, risking their life to capture a well, and then to take the oil, or, you know what I'm saying, get the oil from it. Like, that's something that, like, come on, man, that's not, and it's not like, no, like, they not telling the story like white people showed them how to do it, and they working for the colonizer then enslaved them and got them on the seas hunting well. This is something that they said that these people been doing. So that would show you that we've been transversing the globe. You got ports in Savannah, Georgia, and they tell you the ports down there were slave ports, which is a fucking lie.
Yes, exactly. Put my my email in the chat, A1. A couple of people are asking for my email.
I got you. Huh?
Oh, it's already in there. Janine, thanks, Janine. She put it in there.
Put it in it. But yeah, it's definitely, man,
But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed that there. And yeah, so, you know, there's so much out there we don't know, family. And we're you know, we're going to be blessed. We continue to be blessed by our ancestors to get this information, because they did not tell us about Junior. They never told us about Junior, and now we understand why. Because this here blows away so many, you know, blows through all the bull crap and exposes everything.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, man, shout out to everybody that came through. We've been rocking for 3 hours, man. Definitely appreciate everybody that came through, that enjoyed it. And like I said, the link, once you got the link, you can always go back and check it out. So you know, it's definitely there. So shout out to everybody, man. Definitely shout out to Amani Bey for bringing this information through. Because like I said, if it was up to certain people, this information would have never got out there. It would have never got out there. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
People try to sabotage the build, and this build ain't, you know, it's about our people, and it's more information dealing with what's going on in America, just to keep us on note on what we like, the information that's being hidden from us on what really was going on here. So man, shout out to everybody, man. Appreciate everybody for coming through, man. We about to get up out of here. It's 12 o'clock. I'm about to take it down. So shout out to everybody. Like I said, you got the link. You're more than welcome to watch it as many times you want. I actually put the particular article that he was reading in the chat room. I'm put in the chat room one more time. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Man.
Thanks, Mike. You have a good night, bro.
Because I know
to you.
All right, so with that being said, look, I dropped the link back in there. So y'all got the link. So definitely, I think if you click on the link, it'll take you bookmark it and just definitely keep a copy for yourself. But definitely, man, I'm glad y'all enjoyed it. Definitely, man. That's what's up, man. So I'm about to get up out of here because I've been rocking out. I was going on since 6, so that's damn near 6 hours, man. So, man, shout out to everybody, man. Thank y'all for coming through, man. Thank y'all for purchasing the build. And like I said, it was definitely worth it. That's exactly why, it was something that I definitely wanted to do on a private note. So, shout out to everybody, man. Everybody enjoy the rest of the night and have a good weekend. With that being said, man, peace to gods, peace to goddesses. Shout out to my brother Amani. Shout out to everybody that participated and everybody that purchased a ticket. With that being said, man, we out of here, man. Peace.
Peace. Good night.